Hey YouTube and transcribers, it's Angela and it's Friday, so here's my video. This week's topic is on marriage and all the things that entails. So I'll just start down with questions. Do I think that marriage is an important political debate for trans people? Should trans people be involved in the fight for gay marriage? I'm gonna kind of take a step back and start with the concept of marriage as a political debate at all. Because I think that the institution of marriage is extremely problematic to begin with, and it really kind of bothers me. I kind of don't like the fact that this is what the mainstream GLBT movement topic is, right? So as I'm sure like most people know, marriage has historically been a very oppressive institution that has not been good for a lot of people. I mean, literally when a father walked his daughter down the aisle and gave her away, he was transferring property from one man to another. So like this is the institution that we're dealing with. So I think it's problematic in its own right. And I also think that the fact that the government gives legal rights and benefits to a religious institution is a violation of separation of church and state, and I don't think that it should be to begin with. I'm a big fan of civil unions for everybody and marriage for those who want to have the religious ceremony in their denomination or whatever faith they follow. I think they should be separate. The fact that they're not separate bothers me from the get-go. So yeah, I have problems with marriage as an institution to begin with. As far as it as a political debate for the GLBT movement, that also bothers me because I feel like there are way more important things that we could be talking about or should be talking about. Not that it's not important. I do think that it's important, and if we're going to operate in the system that we have and not question what's wrong with it to begin with, but if we're going to try to work in that, I think absolutely all people should be given the same rights and benefits as anybody else. So I'm totally for that. But I would like to see the GLBT movement focus on making it illegal to discriminate against GLBT people in the workplace, and it's not in 30-some states. I want to see them make it illegal make it legal for adoption, and it's not in all the states. Alabama, I think, or maybe it was Arkansas, just passed that this in November, banning gay adoption. So that is really, really not cool. I'd also like to see, us to think about poor and people of color who fall under the GLBT category, or just poor people of color in general who are living on the streets and dying. I think that is really problematic, especially for trans people who, they can't get the help that they would necessarily want if they find themselves in that position because so much of the government agencies are segregated by gender. So if you want to go to a homeless shelter, it's the men sleep here and the women sleep here. Well, that's great, but if you're trans, they're probably not going to let you be in the place that you identify with, so they don't get those help. So my point is, there are GLBT people dying on the streets every day. There are GLBT people getting fired from their jobs because they are GLBT. We have people getting the shit beat out of them because they're GLBT, and those issues to me are more important than the right to get married. Because is it great that you can have your partner on your health care? Yeah, if you have health care, but what about all the GLBT people that don't have health care because they don't have a job, because they get fired, because they're GLBT? Like, see what I'm getting at? So what counts as an important political debate for the GLBT movement in general is something that I really question. All of that being said, I think that trans people should be involved in, at least to whatever extent they feel comfortable, in the fight for gay marriage, because I think that everyone should be aware and knowledgeable and participate in trying to make this country and our society better and more equal for everybody and all the citizens within it. So yeah, trans people should fight for gay marriage, and gay people should fight for trans rights, right? So that people don't get fired or they don't get killed or all these other things. I think that straight people and white people and people with money and all of this should fight about this stuff, because it's important for everybody. Right, okay. So, do I think trans people are included in the current marriage debate? Nope. I sure don't. I think the current marriage debate is pretty much focused on mainstream assimilationist middle class gay people, and not that their perspective isn't important, but there's a whole lot of other people that don't fit in that category, and I don't think they're included in the current debate, Prop 8 and HRC and all of that. How do I feel about marriage in general? Well, I think I kind of covered that. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I do get really romantical about it at times, and I think it'd be nice, to have a party and all of that. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's a wonderful romantic notion that I definitely ascribe to and have my days where I think about that. But I don't think it's necessary for everybody, and I don't know yet if it's necessary for me. How do I feel about legal marriage versus civil unions? I already answered that. I think civil unions are better. Marriage should be for the people in the religious traditions if they want to do that. What laws are in your state or area concerning marriage and trans people, gay marriage, etc.? Okay, this is where it gets complicated because there's this fantastic loophole here. For same-sex couples cannot get married in the state of Minnesota. So for trans people, what that means is that if you're legally documented as this gender, you can only marry somebody who's legally documented in the other gender. So if you are a trans guy who has changed their gender status, you could marry a cisgendered woman. So technically Drew and I could get married. But if you're a trans guy who hasn't legally changed your gender yet, then you could not marry a cisgendered woman because that would be seen as a same-sex relationships. But you could marry a cisgendered man because that would be considered a straight relationship. If you've already changed your gendered marker, right, then you have to marry the opposite sex, basically. So it's a loophole where some people can and some people can't, and it's total bullshit. And total bullshit. You should be able to marry whoever you want or not marry whoever you want. How does my boyfriend or partner feel about marriage in general? He literally said to me this last weekend, marriage makes him want to vomit in his mouth. So I think that's how he feels about it. He gets romantical about me sometimes too, like, but we have a very different notion, I guess, of what marriage would be. We don't really subscribe to the idea of forever, because nobody knows what forever is, and nobody knows where you're gonna be or who you're gonna be in the forever, right? So the idea of like, I'm gonna be with you forever is just this really wonderful romantic fantasy notion that neither of us subscribe to. So like how we see it, which is great that we agree on this since we're dating, right? Is that the biggest promise you can make to someone is to commit to promise and to try as hard as you can and do everything that you can to make the relationship work, for whatever that means and whatever kind of commitment that you as a partnership create is to promise to do the best you can to make that work. So Andrew basically feels like he's already at that place with me. I mean, he moved to Minneapolis, right, to be with me, so I can't really ask a lot more of him, because he already uprooted his life and moved it 3 states away so that we could stay together. So his kind of idea about marriage is that like we are already at that level of commitment, or to the highest level of commitment that he's capable of, so it's kind of not really on the table for us right now, which I'm very, very fine with. I'm not ready for any kind of conversation like that either, because I still clearly don't know how I feel about all of these issues. Right. So he's okay with it, but he also kind of gets icked out by all of the language, husband and wife and forever and all of that stuff. But he does want to have a big party one day. He likes that. So I think that's everything, and I've already talked for a long time, and I don't know if it made a lot of sense because I just talked a lot. But I'm uploading the video anyway, so have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys next week.